Minho wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the long hallway ahead of him. The floor was dirty again. It was always dirty. Thousands of aliens walked through this station every day, and someone had to clean up after them. That someone was usually him. He pushed his cleaning cart forward, the wheels squeaking on the metal floor. Station Valtheris was huge. It floated in space like a small moon, home to more than 50 different alien species. They came here to trade, to talk about politics, to make deals that affected entire planets. Minho just came here to work. He had been cleaning floors for 10 years now. 10 long years of scrubbing, mopping, and emptying trash. His back hurt most days, his hands were rough and calloused, but the pay was good, better than anything he could get back on Earth's colonies. He sent most of his money home to his mother and his younger sister, Nari. That made it worth it. The upper levels of the station belonged to the rich and powerful. The Drakentine Empire controlled most of this sector of space, and their emperor lived right here on Valtheris. Emperor Vaxthor. Even his name made people nervous. He was huge, covered in golden scales that shimmered under the lights. His eyes were like fire. When he walked through the halls, everyone moved out of his way. Minho had seen the Emperor exactly 3 times in 10 years. Each time, he had pressed himself against the wall and looked at the floor. That was what humans did around Drakentines. You stayed quiet. You stayed small. You survived. Today, Minho's supervisor had given him a special assignment. He was supposed to clean the meditation gardens in the palace section. This was unusual. Humans rarely got to work in the palace. The Drakentines had their own servants for that, species they considered more worthy. But there was some kind of staff shortage, and someone had to clean the gardens before an important meeting tonight. So, Minho got the job. He took the service elevator up to level 97. The doors opened, and he stepped into a different world. Everything here was beautiful. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft light. Real plants grew in huge pots, flowers from a dozen different worlds. The air smelled sweet, nothing like the recycled air in the lower levels. Minho found the meditation gardens at the end of a long corridor. 2 Drakentine guards stood at the entrance. They were massive, easily 3 meters tall, with dark red scales and weapons at their sides. They looked at Minho like he was an insect. "I'm here to clean the gardens," Minho said, keeping his voice steady. One guard checked a data pad and nodded. They stepped aside but didn't say anything. Minho walked past them, feeling their eyes on his back. The gardens were even more beautiful inside. A fountain made of blue crystal stood in the center, water flowing up instead of down through some kind of gravity manipulation. Trees with silver leaves grew in the corners. The floor was covered in soft moss that felt good under his shoes. Minho started his work. He emptied the small trash containers, wiped down the benches, checked the plants for dead leaves. It was peaceful here. Quiet. For a moment, he could almost forget about the ache in his back and the tiredness in his bones. Then he heard it. A sound like someone trying to breathe but couldn't quite manage it. A wet, gasping sound that made his stomach tighten. Minho looked around. At first, he didn't see anything. Then he noticed something behind the fountain. He walked closer and froze. A young Drakentine was lying on the ground. He was smaller than the adults, maybe a teenager by their standards. His scales were supposed to be bright, but they looked dull and gray. His chest moved up and down too fast. His eyes were closed and he was shaking. This was the Emperor's son. Minho had seen pictures of Prince Kaivan before, in the news broadcasts. The pride of the Drakentine Empire. The future ruler of 1,000 worlds. And he was dying. Minho knew what dying looked like. He had watched his father die of lung disease when he was 12. He had seen workers die in accidents on the station. This boy was dying, and he was dying alone. Minho looked back at the entrance. The guards were still there, standing perfectly still, facing away from the gardens. They had to know the prince was here. They had to hear him struggling to breathe. But they weren't doing anything. He thought about calling for help. He thought about running to get a doctor, but something told him that wouldn't work. The guards weren't helping for a reason. In Drakentine culture, showing weakness was shameful. Admitting that the prince was sick would be an insult to the emperor's bloodline, so they were letting him die quietly where no one could see. Minho's hands started shaking. This wasn't his problem. He was just a cleaner. If he got involved, he would lose his job. Maybe worse. The Drakentines didn't like it when humans interfered in their business. But he kept thinking about his sister Nari. 5 years ago, she had gotten sick with appendicitis. She had been in terrible pain, but she tried to hide it because she didn't want to worry their mother. By the time Minho found her, she was almost dead. He had carried her to the hospital, running through the streets, ignoring everyone who told him to slow down. The doctors saved her life. They said another hour and she would have been gone. Minho looked at the prince again. The boy's breathing was getting worse. His scales were turning darker, from gray to almost black. How long had he been lying here? How long had the guards been ignoring him? Minho made a decision. It was probably a stupid decision. It would probably ruin his life, but he couldn't just walk away. He knelt down next to the prince and carefully checked his pulse. It was fast and weak. The boy's skin was burning hot, even through his scales. Minho had no idea what was normal for a Drakentine, but this felt wrong. He needed to get the prince to a hospital, not the palace doctors who had probably already failed to help him. A real hospital with real equipment and doctors who cared more about saving lives than about politics. But first, he needed information. He needed to understand what he was dealing with. Minho stood up and walked back to his cleaning cart. He pulled out his data pad, the cheap one the station gave to all workers. He wasn't supposed to use it for personal stuff, but his friend Jisoo from tech support had shown him some tricks. He accessed the security system and found the camera feeds for this section. He went back through the recordings, watching at high speed. 3 weeks ago, the prince had started having headaches. 2 weeks ago, he collapsed during a training session. 1 week ago, his scales started losing their color. And every single time, the palace doctors had examined him and declared that everything was fine, just growing pains, nothing to worry about. But it was something to worry about. It was something very serious. And no one was helping, because helping would mean admitting that something was wrong with the perfect imperial family. Minho looked at the prince one more time. The boy's eyes opened slightly, just for a moment. They were filled with pain and fear. Then they closed again. That was enough. Minho knew what he had to do, even if it destroyed him. He couldn't let another person die when he could do something about it. That wasn't who he was. That wasn't who humans were. He just needed to figure out how to carry a dying alien prince out of a heavily guarded palace without getting killed. He had until the end of his shift to come up with a plan. 3 hours, maybe less. Minho couldn't sleep that night. He lay in his small room in the workers' quarters, staring at the ceiling. His mind kept showing him the same image over and over, the prince lying on the ground, the guards looking away, the slow, painful death that everyone was pretending not to see. He got up and splashed cold water on his face. His roommate Dong-Yun was snoring in the bunk above him. Dong-Yun worked in food service and could sleep through anything. Minho envied him. He sat down at his desk and pulled out his datapad. He messaged Jisoo. "You awake?" The reply came back immediately. "Always. What's wrong?" Jisoo was one of the few real friends Minho had on the station. They had met 3 years ago when Minho's datapad broke and Jisoo fixed it for free. Since then, they met for lunch once a week and complained about their jobs together. Jisoo was a tech specialist, which meant he knew everything about the station's computer systems. "I need your help with something," Minho typed. Something that might get us both fired. Interesting. Come to my place. 20 minutes later, Minho was sitting in Jisoo's cramped apartment on level 12. Jisoo poured them both cheap coffee and waited. Minho told him everything, the prince, the guards, the decision he had made. As he talked, Jisoo's expression went from curious to worried to something like respect. "You want to break into the Imperial Palace and steal the Emperor's son," Jisoo said slowly. "I want to save his life," Minho corrected. "By breaking into the Imperial Palace and stealing the Emperor's son." "When you say it like that, it sounds bad." Jisoo laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "It is bad, Minho. It's insane. If you try this, you'll be killed. Maybe not right away, but eventually. The Drakentines don't forgive this kind of thing." "I know," Minho said quietly. "But I can't just let him die. I keep thinking about Nari. What if nobody had helped her? What if everyone had just walked past because they were scared?" Jisoo was quiet for a long time. He drank his coffee and looked at his computer screens. Finally, he sighed. "Okay. If you're going to do this stupid thing, we should at least do it smart. The security system does a reset every night at 3 in the morning. There's a 47-second window where the cameras go dark and the locks cycle. That's your chance." 47 seconds isn't very long. No, it's not, which is why you need to know exactly where you're going and how to get there fast. Jisoo started typing on his keyboard. Maps appeared on his screens showing the layout of the palace. "The meditation gardens are here. The nearest hospital is on level 60, but you can't use the main corridors. Too many guards." "What about the maintenance tunnels?" "Smart. Yes, there's a tunnel system that runs through the whole station. It's dirty and cramped, but it'll get you there." Jisoo highlighted a route in green. "This is your best path. From the gardens, down this access shaft, through Tunnel 7 and out near the hospital emergency entrance." "How long will that take?" "If you're carrying someone, maybe 15 minutes, maybe more." Jisoo looked at him seriously. "You'll be on every security alert in the system. They'll lock down the whole palace, maybe the whole station. You need to move fast." Minho studied the map, memorizing the route. "Thank you, Jisoo." "Don't thank me yet. There's something else you need to know." Jisoo pulled up another screen. "I've been watching the palace medical logs. The prince has been sick for 19 days. Whatever he has, it's getting worse. Even if you get him to the hospital, he might not make it." "But at least we'll have tried," Minho said. The next 3 nights, Minho prepared. He studied the maps until he could navigate them in his sleep. He practiced moving quickly but carefully, timing himself. He read everything he could find about Drakentine biology, trying to understand what might be wrong with the prince. He also wrote letters to his mother and Nari just in case. He didn't tell them what he was planning, but he told them he loved them. He told them he was proud to be their son and brother. He sealed the letters and left them with Jisoo. "If something happens to me, make sure they get these," he said. Jisoo nodded. He looked sad but didn't try to talk Minho out of it anymore. On the 4th night, Minho went to work. He did his regular duties, cleaning the lower-level corridors, emptying trash, fixing broken cleaning robots. His supervisor, a 6-legged alien named Thlix, gave him his assignments for the night. "Human Minho, you will clean sections 47 through 52. Do not deviate from your route. Do not enter restricted areas. Your contract depends on following these rules." "I understand," Minho said. He worked until 2:30 in the morning. Then, when no one was watching, he slipped into a maintenance closet and changed his route. He took the service elevator up, using an access code that Jisoo had given him. The elevator climbed higher and higher, past the commercial levels, past the residential areas, all the way to the palace. The doors opened at 2:57. Minho stepped out into the corridor. It was quiet here. The guards changed shifts at 3. For a few minutes, there would be fewer people watching. He moved quickly but quietly, following the path he had memorized. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Every shadow looked like a guard. Every sound made him want to run. He reached the meditation gardens at exactly 3 o'clock. The doors were locked, but Jisoo had given him another code. The lock clicked open just as the security system began its reset. 47 seconds. Minho ran inside. The prince was there, in the same spot behind the fountain. He looked worse than before. His scales were almost completely black now. His breathing was so shallow it was barely visible. Minho knelt down and carefully lifted the prince. The boy was heavy, much heavier than he looked. Minho adjusted his grip, getting the prince across his shoulders in a fireman's carry, the same way he had carried his sister years ago. 20 seconds left. He ran back to the corridor and found the access shaft that Jisoo had marked on the map. He pulled open the hatch and started climbing down the ladder, one-handed, holding the prince with his other arm. 5 seconds. He reached the bottom and pulled the hatch closed above him just as the security system came back online. And then every alarm on the station started screaming. Lights flashed red. Automated voices announced a security breach. Minho heard the thunder of boots as guards ran through the corridors above him. They knew. They knew someone had taken the prince. Minho started running through the maintenance tunnel. It was dark and hot, filled with pipes and cables. The prince was getting heavier with every step. Minho's legs burned, his lungs burned, but he kept moving. He could hear the guards behind him now, entering the tunnel system. They were coming fast. The hospital was still 10 minutes away, maybe more. Minho didn't know if he could make it, but he had to try. He had come too far to stop now. He thought about his father's words spoken years ago. The measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when it's hard. This was the hardest thing Minho had ever done, which meant it was the most important. He ran faster. Minho burst through the emergency entrance of Valtharis General Hospital with the prince still across his shoulders. He was covered in sweat. His legs were shaking. Behind him, he could hear the guards getting closer. The hospital lobby was busy even at 3 in the morning. Patients from a dozen different species sat in waiting areas. Nurses moved between rooms. Everyone stopped and stared when Minho came running in. "I need a doctor!" Minho shouted. "Right now!" A security guard stepped forward, reaching for his weapon. But before anything could happen, a calm voice cut through the chaos. "Bring him to exam room 7. The voice belonged to Dr. Hyunwoo, the chief of medicine. He was a human in his 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been working at this hospital for 30 years, treating everyone from wealthy merchants to poor workers. He didn't care who you were or where you came from. If you were sick, he would help you. Dr. Hyunwoo looked at the prince, then at Minho, and made his decision in about 2 seconds. "Follow me, quickly." Minho followed him down a corridor and into a large exam room. Medical equipment lined the walls. A bed stood in the center, surrounded by monitors and machines. "Put him down here, gently." Dr. Hyunwoo was already pulling on gloves and preparing his instruments. Minho lowered the prince onto the bed. The boy's head rolled to the side. He didn't open his eyes. Dr. Hyunwoo immediately started checking vital signs, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Suji, Jinwoo, get in here now," he called out. 2 more humans rushed into the room. Suji was a nurse in her 30s, short and quick. Jinwoo was a medical technician, young and nervous-looking. They both stopped when they saw who was on the bed. "That's the Emperor's son," Suji whispered. "That's a patient who needs help," Dr. Hyunwoo corrected. "Get the full-spectrum scanner online. I need a complete biological workup. Jinwoo, calibrate for Drakentine physiology." They moved into action. Suji positioned the scanner above the prince. Jinwoo typed rapidly on a computer, adjusting the settings. Dr. Hyunwoo connected monitors to the prince's body, watching the readouts carefully. Minho stood against the wall, trying to stay out of the way. His whole body was shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. He had done it. He had actually done it. The prince was here, getting help. But then the door exploded open. Emperor Vaxthor filled the doorway. He was even bigger than Minho remembered, his golden scales bright with fury. His eyes burned like stars. Behind him stood 20 Imperial guards, weapons drawn and ready. "You dare touch the crown prince?" The Emperor's voice shook the room. "You dare steal my son?" Minho opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was going to die. They were all going to die. Dr. Hyunwoo stepped between Minho and the Emperor. He was less than half the Emperor's size, but he didn't back down. "Your Majesty, your son is dying. He needs immediate medical attention. If you want him to live, you need to let us work. My physicians have declared him healthy. With respect, your physicians are wrong." Dr. Hyunwoo gestured to the monitors. "Look at these readings. His internal temperature is critical. His organ function is failing. Whatever is wrong with him, it's killing him right now." The Emperor stared at the monitors. His anger seemed to waver, replaced by something else. Fear, maybe, or confusion. "This is impossible. The Crown Prince cannot be weak." "Sickness is not weakness," Dr. Hyunwoo said firmly. "It's biology, and biology doesn't care about politics or pride." More people rushed into the room. 3 Drakentine physicians in fancy robes pushed their way past the guards. They looked at the scene with shock and anger. "How dare you!" one of them hissed at Dr. Hyunwoo. "You have no authority to treat the prince. Remove him from this inferior facility immediately." "No," Dr. Hyunwoo said simply. "You refuse a direct order from the Imperial Medical Council?" "I refuse to let a patient die because of your incompetence." Dr. Hyunwoo turned to face them fully. "You missed the diagnosis. You've been missing it for weeks. You were so concerned with protecting the Imperial image that you forgot to actually practice medicine." The Drakentine physicians looked ready to attack him, but before they could, Suji spoke up from her position at the scanner. "Doctor, I have the results." Everyone turned to look at the screen. Even the Emperor moved closer, though he kept his eyes on Dr. Hyunwoo as if expecting a trick. Dr. Hyunwoo studied the data, his expression getting more serious. "Thoraxian fever, advanced stage." "That's impossible," one of the Drakentine physicians said. "Thoraxian fever affects only lower species. Drakentines have complete immunity." "Apparently not." Dr. Hyunwoo pulled up more scans. "The fever crossed species barriers, probably mutated. It's rare but not impossible. And it's fatal if untreated past 20 days. He looked at the Emperor. "How long has your son been sick?" The Emperor didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone could do the math. "We need to start treatment immediately," Dr. Hyunwoo said. "The procedure is called deep blood filtration. It takes 72 hours of continuous monitoring. It's dangerous and painful, but it's the only chance he has." "And you know how to perform this procedure?" the Emperor asked. "I've done it 43 times. 39 of those patients survived." Dr. Hyunwoo met the Emperor's burning gaze without flinching. "Can your physicians say the same?" The Drakentine physicians sputtered and protested. They talked about proper protocols and the insult of using a human facility. They talked about everything except whether they could actually save the prince's life. The Emperor listened to them, then looked at his son lying pale and still on the hospital bed. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. "Do it." "Your Majesty," the physicians protested. "I said do it." The Emperor's roar silenced them. He turned back to Dr. Hyunwoo. "Save my son. I don't care how. I don't care what it costs. Just save him." Dr. Hyunwoo nodded. "We'll need this room cleared. Only essential medical personnel. That includes Imperial guards." The Emperor looked like he wanted to argue, but he slowly nodded. My guards will remain outside, but I stay. Fair enough. Dr. Hyunwoo turned to his team. Suji, prep the filtration unit. Jinwoo, I need a complete inventory of compatible medications. We're going to have to improvise some of this. Drakentine biology isn't in our standard protocols. They moved into action. Minho watched as they worked together like a well-trained team, each person knowing exactly what to do. They didn't care that their patient was royalty. They didn't care about the Emperor watching their every move. They just focused on saving a life. Jinwoo brought over a large machine and started connecting tubes. Suji carefully inserted medical lines into the prince's arm. Dr. Hyunwoo monitored everything, making adjustments, giving orders in a calm, steady voice. Minho started to back toward the door. He had done his part. Now it was up to the doctors, but the Emperor's voice stopped him. You, the cleaner, what is your name? Minho swallowed hard. Minho, your majesty. You will stay, Minho the cleaner. You saw what others refused to see. You acted when those sworn to serve looked away. The Emperor's voice was strange. Not angry anymore, but something else. You will watch over my son with me. So Minho stayed. He found a chair in the corner and sat down. He was still technically a prisoner. He would probably still be executed when this was over. But for now, he was allowed to see if his crazy decision had been worth it. Dr. Hyunwoo activated the filtration machine. It hummed to life, and the prince's blood began flowing through tubes, being cleaned and filtered before returning to his body. 72 hours, Dr. Hyunwoo said. Now we wait. The Emperor stood beside his son's bed, one massive hand hovering near the boy's head, but not quite touching. For the first time, Minho saw past the scales and the power. He saw a father who was afraid of losing his child. Maybe, Minho thought, they weren't so different after all. The first 12 hours were the hardest. Prince Kaivan's body fought against the treatment like it was an enemy. His temperature spiked, his heart rate jumped wildly. Twice the monitors started screaming alarms, and Dr. Hyunwoo had to rush in and make adjustments. Minho watched it all from his chair in the corner. He couldn't help. He didn't know anything about medicine. But he could be there. He could bear witness. Sometimes that was enough. The Emperor never left the room. He stood like a statue beside his son's bed, watching every breath, every heartbeat on the monitors. Sometimes other Drakentines came to the door to give him reports about the Empire, about politics and wars and treaties. He sent them all away. Nothing matters if my son dies, he told one particularly persistent advisor. At hour 16, a young Drakentine woman pushed past the guards and entered the room. She had purple and gold scales and eyes that reminded Minho of the prince. This was Princess Seratine, the Emperor's daughter. She looked at her brother, then at her father, then at Minho sitting quietly in the corner. You're the one who carried him here, she said to Minho. He nodded, not sure if he should speak. Why? Her voice wasn't angry, just curious. You're human, a worker. You could have pretended not to see. You could have stayed safe. Why did you risk everything? Minho thought about his answer. Because he needed help. That's enough reason. Seratine stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She bowed to him, the way Drakentines bowed to their superiors. Thank you, she said. Thank you for seeing my brother as a person, not just as a prince. After she left, the Emperor looked at Minho differently, not with anger or suspicion, but with something like respect. At hour 24, Dr. Hyunwoo came in to check the prince's progress. He looked exhausted. Suji and Jinwoo were taking turns sleeping in the break room, but Dr. Hyunwoo refused to leave. How is he? The Emperor asked. Stable. The filtration is working, but slowly. His body is fighting us every step of the way. Dr. Hyunwoo checked the monitors and made some notes. This would be easier if Drakentine biology was better documented. I'm having to guess at some of the dosages. You're doing fine, Minho said quietly. Everyone looked at him in surprise. He hadn't spoken in hours. My sister's surgery didn't go perfectly either. The doctors had to adjust and improvise. But they saved her because they didn't give up. Dr. Hyunwoo smiled tiredly. Wise words from a cleaner. I know good work when I see it, Minho said. You're doing good work. At hour 36, disaster struck. The prince's vital signs crashed. His heart rate dropped to almost nothing. His breathing stopped. Alarms screamed. Dr. Hyunwoo and his team rushed in. The Drakentine physicians who had been hovering outside pushed into the room. He's dying! Stop the treatment! One of them demanded. No! Dr. Hyunwoo snapped. He was working frantically, adjusting machines, checking readouts. Suji, prepare the emergency stimulant. Jinwoo, reroute the filtration flow. You're killing him! The Drakentine physician shouted. The Emperor's hand shot out and grabbed the physician by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Be silent! Let them work! Minho watched Suji's hands move with steady precision. She had done this before, he realized. She knew exactly what to do even in a crisis. There was a pattern in the data that most people wouldn't see, but she saw it. She made an adjustment to the filtration rate. It wasn't in any of the standard protocols. It was pure instinct, years of experience making a split-second decision. The prince's heart rate jumped, then stabilized. His breathing started again, weak but steady. Dr. Hyunwoo let out a long breath. Good catch, Suji. She nodded, but Minho could see her hands shaking now that the crisis was over. The Drakentine physician, still dangling in the Emperor's grip, looked pale. The Emperor dropped him and pointed to the door. Get out, all of you! You've done enough damage! The Imperial physicians left, their pride wounded but their lives intact. At hour 48, the Emperor had to leave. News had come that rival factions within his empire had learned about the prince's condition. They were gathering their forces, sensing weakness. If the Emperor didn't show strength immediately, there would be civil war. I have to go, he said, looking at his son. I have to protect the empire so there's still an empire for him to inherit. He turned to Minho. You, cleaner, watch over my son. Me? Minho blinked in surprise. But You're the one who saw him when everyone else looked away. You're the one who cared when caring was dangerous. The Emperor's voice was firm. Stay with him. If anything happens, you tell Dr. Hyunwoo immediately. So Minho, a human cleaner with no medical training, became the guardian of the Crown Prince. He moved his chair closer to the bed. He watched the monitors like Dr. Hyunwoo had taught him, learning what the numbers meant, what to watch for. Jinwoo brought him food and coffee. You're famous now, you know, Jinwoo said. The story is all over the station. The human who defied the Emperor to save his son. I didn't defy him. I just did what was right. Same thing sometimes. Jinwoo smiled. Oh, and your fellow cleaners went on strike. They're refusing to work until you're freed. Minho felt a warmth in his chest. They did that for me? You're one of us. We take care of our own. At hour 55, Minho started talking to the prince. He didn't know if the boy could hear him, but it felt better than sitting in silence. He told him about Earth, about the colony where he grew up, where the sky was always red because of the dust in the atmosphere, about his sister Nari, who wanted to be a teacher, about his mother who made the best soup in the whole colony. He told him about the importance of being seen, about how everyone matters, regardless of their position or power, about how the strongest thing anyone can do is admit they need help. Your father loves you, Minho said softly. He's just bad at showing it. A lot of powerful people are like that. They think showing emotion is weakness, but caring about people? That's not weakness. That's what makes us strong. At hour 68, Jisoo visited. The guards tried to stop him, but he talked his way past them somehow. "You're alive," Jisoo said, relief clear in his voice. "I thought for sure you'd be dead by now." "Not yet." Minho smiled tiredly. "Thanks for the help. The codes worked perfectly. I've been suspended, by the way, pending investigation into my role in your unauthorized access to restricted areas." Jisoo didn't look upset. "Worth it, though. How's the prince?" "Better. Maybe. We'll know in a few more hours." They sat together in comfortable silence, two friends who had both risked everything for a boy they didn't know. At hour 71, Prince Kaivan's eyes opened. Just a crack, just for a moment. They were confused, unfocused, but they were open. "It's okay," Minho said gently. "You're safe. You're in the hospital. You're going to be okay." The prince's eyes found his face. There was a question in them, though he was too weak to speak. "I'm Minho. I'm the person who brought you here. Just rest. Save your strength." The prince's eyes closed again, but Minho thought he saw relief there. Or maybe gratitude. At hour 72, Dr. Hyunwoo disconnected the filtration machine. He checked all the readings one final time, then smiled. "He's through it. The fever is broken. His organ function is returning to normal. He's going to make it." Minho felt tears on his face. He hadn't even realized he was crying. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." Dr. Hyunwoo put a hand on his shoulder. "You saved him, Minho. We just cleaned up the details. You're the one who refused to look away." Outside the hospital, Minho could hear cheering. The word had spread. The prince would live. And somewhere in the noise and celebration, Minho heard the sound of 100 cleaning carts being pushed back to work. The strike was over. They had all won. 3 days after the prince woke up, Minho was still expecting to be executed. He had broken into the imperial palace. He had touched the crown prince without permission. He had defied direct orders from his supervisor. Any one of those things could get a human worker killed on this station, but instead of guards coming to arrest him, he received a message. The emperor wanted to see him. Minho walked to the palace with his heart pounding. This was it. The emperor would thank him politely, then have him quietly removed. That's how powerful people worked. They couldn't afford to look weak by letting someone get away with breaking their rules, even if that person had saved a life. The throne room was massive. The ceiling stretched up so high that Minho couldn't see the top. Hundreds of Drakentines stood along the walls, nobles and advisors and military leaders. They all watched Minho as he walked across the floor, a tiny human in a cleaning uniform, approaching the most powerful being in this sector of space. Emperor Vaxthor sat on his throne, looking down at Minho with those burning eyes. Prince Kaivan stood beside him, still pale but alive. Princess Seratine was there too, along with half the imperial court. Minho knelt because that seemed like the right thing to do. He waited for judgment. "Rise," the emperor commanded. Minho stood up. His legs were shaking, but he tried not to show it. "You broke our laws," the emperor said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You entered restricted areas. You touched the crown prince without authorization. You defied the imperial guard. Under our law, these crimes carry a sentence of death." Here it comes, Minho thought. At least I got to see the prince recover first. "However," the emperor continued, "you also saved my son's life when everyone else, including those sworn to protect him, failed to act. You saw what needed to be done and you did it, knowing the cost. You showed more courage than most of my soldiers, more compassion than most of my advisors, more wisdom than my own physicians." The emperor stood up from his throne. He walked down the steps until he was standing directly in front of Minho. Up close, he was even more intimidating, but Minho held his ground. I have spent 3 centuries building this empire through strength and fear. I believed that power was all that mattered. But you have taught me something, human. You have shown me that sometimes the strongest thing we can do is admit when we need help. That seeing the truth, even when it's painful, is more valuable than maintaining a comfortable lie. The Emperor raised his voice so everyone in the room could hear. Therefore, I issue this decree. All workers on this station, regardless of species or position, will receive full medical care at imperial expense. No one will be denied treatment because of their status or their wealth. Murmurs ran through the court. Some sounded approving, many sounded shocked. Furthermore, the Emperor continued, I am creating a new position, cultural liaison to the imperial family. This person will have the authority to speak truth to power without fear of punishment. They will act as a bridge between the imperial court and the common people of this station. And the first person to hold this position will be Minho, human cleaner, savior of the crown prince. Minho's mind went blank. What? You heard me correctly? The Emperor almost smiled. Almost. You will advise me and my family on matters concerning the welfare of all station residents. You will have an office in the palace. You will have access to imperial resources. And most importantly, you will continue to be the person who refuses to look away when something is wrong. Your Majesty, Minho said carefully, I'm not qualified for this. I'm just a cleaner. You are someone who sees people, not positions. That is a qualification most of my court lacks. The Emperor turned to address the room. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Power without compassion is meaningless. Strength without wisdom is useless. We have become so concerned with appearing perfect that we forgot to be good. Prince Kaivan stepped forward. He was still weak, moving carefully, but he walked on his own. He bowed to Minho, and the entire court gasped. Thank you, the prince said. His voice was soft but clear. Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for treating me like I mattered. You do matter, Minho said. Everyone matters. That's kind of the whole point. Over the following weeks, Minho's life changed completely. He moved into palace quarters, though he insisted on keeping his old room in the workers' section too. He set up his office and immediately started making changes. His first official act was to demand better working conditions for all maintenance crews. Shorter shifts, better pay, actual breaks. The Emperor approved all of it. His second act was to create a station-wide health screening program. Every resident, from the wealthiest merchant to the poorest worker, would receive regular medical checkups. Dr. Hyunwoo was put in charge of the program, with Suji and Jinwoo as his deputies. His third act was probably his favorite. He told the Emperor to his face that the throne room was filthy and someone should clean it better. The Emperor laughed. It was the first time most of the court had heard him laugh in decades. Then find someone to clean it properly. I will, Minho said, and I'll make sure they're paid well and treated with respect. Prince Kaivan recovered fully. More than that, he started spending time in the lower levels of the station, meeting the people who kept it running. He learned about maintenance systems and food service and waste management. He learned the names of workers his tutors had taught him to ignore. One day, Minho found the prince sitting in the workers' cafeteria, eating cheap noodles with a group of human technicians. Is this okay? The prince asked. Am I allowed to be here? You're allowed to be wherever you want, Minho said. You're the prince, but more importantly, you're a person, and people should know how other people live. Princess Seratine started training with Dr. Hyunwoo's medical team. She wanted to understand the kind of medicine that valued lives over politics. She was a quick learner, and soon she was assisting with surgeries and treatments. The other Drakentine nobles were scandalized. The Emperor approved. Jisoo got his job back, along with a promotion. He was put in charge of station security systems, with orders to find and fix any weaknesses. He and Minho still had lunch together once a week, though now they complained about different things. "I never thought I'd see you wearing fancy clothes and working in a palace," Jisoo said one day. "I never thought I'd survive breaking into a palace," Minho replied. "Life is surprising." "Are you happy with all these changes?" Minho thought about it. "I'm tired. This job is harder than cleaning. But yes, I'm happy. I get to help people now, more people than I could help before. That's worth being tired." The story of what happened spread across the galaxy. Other stations started copying Minho's reforms. Other empires began questioning their own systems. Humans, who had been seen as weak and inferior by many species, were suddenly looked at differently. Maybe humans weren't the strongest, maybe they weren't the smartest, but they had something that many other species had forgotten. They saw people, not positions. They valued life, not just power. And they refused to look away when someone needed help. 6 months after that night in the meditation gardens, Minho received a message from home. His sister Nari had graduated top of her class and was starting her teaching career. His mother was proud of him, though she worried he was working too hard. "You always did care too much," she wrote. "Even when you were little, you couldn't stand to see anyone suffer. I'm glad you never lost that. The galaxy needs more people like you." Minho sat in his office, reading the message, and felt tears on his face again. Happy tears this time. There was a knock on his door. Prince Kaivan entered, carrying a data pad. "I have the new health screening results you asked for," the prince said. He sat down across from Minho and pulled up the data. 17 cases of early-stage illness caught and treated. 3 cases of malnutrition addressed. 1 case of, you're not going to believe this, another mutation of thoraxian fever. Did they catch it in time? Yes, because of the screening program. Because you insisted that everyone, no matter who they are, deserves medical care. The prince looked at Minho seriously. "You know what the other nobles call you?" "I can imagine. They call you the human who changed the empire. Some of them say it with respect, some say it with anger, but they all say it." "What do you call me?" Minho asked. The prince smiled. It was the first time Minho had seen him really smile. "I call you my friend, if that's okay." "That's more than okay," Minho said. They worked together for the rest of the afternoon, going through reports, identifying problems, finding solutions. A prince and a cleaner working side by side to make things better. Later that night, Minho walked through the lower levels of the station. He passed maintenance workers and technicians, shopkeepers and laborers. Some of them recognized him and nodded in respect. Others didn't know who he was and ignored him completely. That was fine. Minho didn't need to be famous. He just needed to do work that mattered. He reached his old room and went inside. Dong-hyun, his former roommate, was still there, still snoring in the upper bunk. Minho had kept this room as a reminder of where he came from, of who he was before everything changed. He was still that person. He would always be that person. A cleaner who saw someone who needed help and refused to walk away. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the world. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe is just caring enough to act. And sometimes the person who changes everything is the one everyone else ignored. That's the human way. See the problem, face the fear, do what's right, no matter the cost.